Let's go ahead and get started. I know there's a few folks still trickling in, so we'll go through the easy stuff first, and then get into more of the details later. So thank you everyone for attending. Meeting here tonight is for reconstruction of Raalte Avenue, which includes a couple of segments of 11th Street. So hopefully you're here for that. And I know we've got it going out online on YouTube, and I think we got a couple of folks tuning in via YouTube, so thank you. All right, introduce the project team. My name's Brian White. I'm the Director of Transportation, City Engineer for City of Holland. I've got Ryan and Andrew. Ryan's running the chat box. Andrew here from the city. Brian Ritchie from the BPW. And Aaron Ealing from Whiteman, a consultant on the job. For tonight, we'll go through a PowerPoint. We'll talk about project limits. This is the phase 2 of a 2-phase project. You all were witness to phase 1 last year. Then we'll talk about scope on phase 2, project scheduling and phasing, and then we'll have question and answer. And somebody remind me to get any YouTube questions that come through on the chat. All right, with that. In green up there, well, in blue first, that was phase 1. So we did a couple of blocks of Raalte, a block of 10th Street. If you could sign in, sir, on your way in, that'd be great. And 1 block of 11th, west of Raalte, and then around up Collin Park Drive to 16th Street. So that was phase 1. We intentionally got through 11th Street intersection on phase 1 because a portion of phase 1 is going to be used as the detour route for phase 2. Okay, but phase 2, basically, you see up there in green, 2 blocks of 11th Street from Maple, Raalte, and then on Raalte Avenue itself from 11th to 24th Street. Again, scope of work is primarily reconstruct, including driveway approaches, sidewalks. So we've got cross sections here. The existing cross section on Raalte isn't really going to change much. It's tired, right? Raalte's tired. The underlying infrastructure, the storm sewer underneath Raalte is very tired. It's over 100 years old. So that's all going to get replaced as part of this project. Curb and gutters, driveway approaches, sidewalk. There is going to be some utility work as well, and we'll let Brian Ritchie from the board talk more specifically about that. That cross section on 11th Street is going to pretty much be the same. I think, is it even narrowing up a little bit, Aaron? We taking a half a foot off or something like that? Anyway, the curb and gutters are going to be about the same spot they are now. And there'll be traditional curb and gutter. I think some of that curb and gutter out there is pretty old. It's a little unusual. So that'll all be standard stuff when we're done. Yeah, same thing, 11th Street. Again, for all intents and purposes, the curbs are going to go back where they are now. But 11th Street, as with Raalte, full reconstruct. Everything's coming out, sidewalks, driveway approaches. Rob, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, 37 foot wide, 41 foot wide. Again, what you see out there is what we're going to do. So 11th Street improvements, just shown here on the bottom. I'll get over to the truck route. So one of the things we're sensitive of or cognizant of is Raalte is a truck route, at least a portion of it. Again, we were intentional about getting through 11th Street intersection so that we'll run trucks down Collin Park Drive to get them around that construction there when we're working on it. We'll talk a little bit more about phasing 2, trying to have as minimal impact on schools and things like that. I'm going to turn things over to Brian. He's going to talk utilities.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Brian Ritchie with Holland BPW. So we're We're focusing mainly on just some water improvements here. This is kind of a carry through from last year. 10th Street was the last block that we did from project back in 21. That was part of phase 1, and then through the intersection of 10th and 11th on Van Raalte. So this year, our focus and where we'll be participating in is just on 11th Street with water improvements, and that's again from Maple to Van Raalte. So with that, that's our focus. So along with the water main, we'll obviously be doing some water service replacements. Those services are going to be replaced from the main to the curb box. If there is a galvanized service, so basically any of these services that haven't been replaced, if they're original to the house, more than likely it's galvanized. And if it's galvanized all the way into the house, that portion is required by the state to be replaced as well. So if you do have one of those, you should have received a letter from us that has an agreement with it. If you haven't already, if you could sign that, get that back to us, that is stating that we have the agreement to go onto your property to replace that portion of the service. So again, that's a state pushed thing with the lead and copper rule. And again, the letter explains it a little bit more in a little more detail. But just to kind of discuss a little bit more about that, it is going to be a couple of times that a contractor and or plumber will need to get into your home first to at least locate where your service is coming in, and then again to obviously perform the work, and then if there's any special circumstances. You have a question?
Yeah, so you're talking about just 11th Street, not Van Raalte?
Correct. Okay. Correct. Yes, we would like to continue down Van Raalte, but we have a lot of other work in other areas that are addressing needs where we have a lot of main breaks. So this is all we're participating in this project. A little bit more on the water service side here. So just to kind of give you a picture of what that looks like from the main and all the way into the house. So the city, the BPW will own the portion between the curb box and the main. That doesn't change, and that is obviously our cost. If you have a galvanized service for this project, that will also not be at any cost to you. However, you will still own that. So just to be clear that ownership doesn't change just because we're replacing it. Now, there is a 1-year warranty period for the contractor if something were to go wrong, that would be covered, just like anything else you would typically have replaced. But that ownership is going to stay the same as it is today. Then this is just kind of a overhead view of that. So typically what we've been doing with these projects, and you probably saw last year if you were out there, there's a contractor, basically a drilling contractor, that will drill from the sidewalk, essentially where the curb box is at, near the sidewalk there, into the house, and actually either under the basement floor or through the basement wall, wherever it makes sense for them to come up with the service. So that alleviates any issues coming in through your yard, obviously tearing anything up in your yard. Obviously there will be some restoration that'll have to happen, but for the most part, it's drilled in. Question?
Yeah, they came out last year and they painted, I believe it says Camp Grill in green paint. Does that sound familiar?
It does not sound familiar, but I mean, if there is a special circumstance where they're not able to, obviously we can discuss that, but I know we try to at least get most of the way by drilling it, just because it's more effective, honestly, instead of just excavating it all the way in, because then you also got to be able to get underneath to the basement too. So drilling it is the best route to go. Let's see what else. I think that was all I had. Is there any questions on water? And I'll stick around after too, but while we're on that topic. Yeah. Oh, yes, there was a question about not being able to drill. So again, for the most part, that's something we're going to try to do, and special circumstances we'll work with you and the contractor will to make that work.
Okay, you said that it was guaranteed for a year for the contractor's work. How would we know if it was leaking? Is there a way we can check that with our water usage or?
Yeah, so the question was the 1-year warranty period for the contractor. How would you know? I mean, You would know if you're starting to lose pressure, or obviously if you see a leak at the meter or something like that. That's probably gonna be your telltale signs.
Pressure is so low now that anything would be an improvement.
Well, and it probably is because of the service, and it's an older main, so you should see some significant improvement after this project. If there's a defect or something like that in the material or something like that, that'd really be the only way something would go wrong within the first year. But chances are you're not.
We had a pipe in our backyard that someone previously had, they had like a little pond in the far back.
Mhm.
And that pipe was still live, and I guess it had broken, and it was leaking for a long time before we figured out why the water bill was climbing.
Ah, okay.
So
Well,
it didn't show up real quick.
as I say, whatever's going through your meter, you should know, and obviously if it's something internal, then that's on, a plumber to come take a look at it. Was there a question over here? Yeah.
We're up in Raalte, and you guys know what you're doing, I know, but I'm just wondering, like, with the water thing, will that not be a problem at all, like doing all that road work, but then not doing water stuff on Raalte? Will you have to do that later, or will you not have to do that?
So, yeah, so the question was if you're out in Raalte, will they not need to do any water improvements as they're going through there? I know the city is doing some storm sewer improvements, but as far as the exposure that the existing water main has to being excavated, obviously that's gonna be minimal. It's mostly road improvements and obviously some storm as well, but, if something does fail or they come across the water service and they break it, obviously they're gonna need to fix it. So, yes, we will be coming back, I'm sure at some point. It's hard to say when, just like I said, because there's a lot of other needs around the city that we are addressing.
Many years, or a few years, or what would be your guess?
Honestly, it's hard to say. We've noticed a huge gap in the 1940s and 1950s cast iron main that is experiencing a lot of breaks. So that's kind of our focus right now is getting to those first because they're breaking. So even though some of this pipe might be older than that, it's actually holding up much better than the 40s and 50s.
When you do eventually do that, is that gonna be a new road project too, or do you do that without? 20-year life.
Yeah, as I say, if it's 15, 20 years, yeah, probably. If it's something we had to get in there to do it, we would just kind of patch and replace as we go. But more than likely, it'd be a new road project 20-some years from now, maybe sooner if something comes up and we start experiencing a lot more breaks over there. It kind of depends.
How does all this connect with the fiber optic?
Question was, how does this connect with the fiber optic? It doesn't. They are kind of on their own path right now. They have their own contractor. They're on their own warpath of getting through the city. I know they have a route, and there's a lot of information through the BPW website if you have questions on that. I know we've been staffing up because that's picking up a lot of steam right now. So this is definitely completely outside of that. Another question?
We are hoping to have our water service replaced if we're on Raalte. Would this be an opportunity if we could work with our own contractors to do that when the road's already torn up, or is it hard to?
Yes, absolutely. The question was, if you're on Raalte, could we work with a contractor to get it done on your own cost? Absolutely. That would be an opportune time to do it if you don't want to wait, because contractors right there, that's the best deal you're gonna get.
It would save us thousands of dollars.
For sure.
Like align it with
No
ours.
restoration.
Yeah, you want to pay restoration, right?
And sanitary for that matter too, right? Any laterals that they may have, sanitary wise on them.
Yes, yep, as well. If you're looking to replace that would be a good time to do it as well.
Who would be our contact point to, at the city or BPW, like who would we steer a contractor?
Yeah, I'll leave a card here. You can contact me, but ultimately through the general contractor, which is going to be Milbacher. Whether they do some of it, the plumber for this should be, is it Macatawa Plumbing still?
I believe it, yes.
So, and they'll be out there. Obviously, you could catch them and say, hey, can you come take a look, give us a price. It hopefully is as easy as that. But I'll leave a card here if you have questions, and we can go that way.
Apologize, I came in late. We are on in Raalte, but our water service runs under the neighbor's garage out to 17th. And of course, the water service didn't our driveway, so, is that gonna change at all, or are you gonna reroute things, or?
So, unfortunately, since we're not really going down Van Raalte, there's not much we would do there. If we were coming by with new water main, we would absolutely abandon that one and put a new one to Van Raalte. So if you were to want to replace it like she was saying and front that cost, then I would recommend, and we would probably recommend, because it would come through the BPW as to where to tap the new main to come into that, what would be the existing water main.
No restoration, right? We cover.
And again, yeah, that's where you're saving all the costs, is not having to pay for pavement restoration, grass restoration, sidewalk, any of that. And just the contractor being there is a better cost for you too. Go ahead.
Can someone give us an idea of when the disruption and destruction at 10th and Washington is going to be done?
At 10th and Washington. Are they doing fiber right there right now?
They're doing fiber.
Okay. I do not know, but if you, there should be a number to call, the BPW number to call that has any questions you have about fiber and where they're going to be next. I can certainly ask somebody tomorrow when I get back to the office about what their schedule is. I know they're trying to communicate that as best they can.
Not well.
I will let them know. I will let them know. Question from?
We have three. One is, where do we get an agreement if we don't have, and to clarify, there is no cost to the homeowner?
Where do we get the agreement?
Yeah, you provide that, right?
Yeah, if you have a galvanized service and you are on 11th between Washington and Van Raalte, or Maple and Van Raalte, sorry, you should have received an agreement. If you did not receive an agreement, we have records that you do not have a galvanized service. So if you think you have a galvanized service, please let me know, and we can get you an agreement, but that would be the process.
And for 11th Street, I received a letter about this being the time to replace the sewer line from the house. What is the plan for that?
So, as far as the sewer goes, we're not doing any sewer main improvements, but I know there are a number of joint laterals on this stretch. So the plan is to have a new sanitary lateral stub to the right of way. And that would be at no cost to the homeowners who are on the joint lateral. And then it would be on the homeowners to decipher as far as how to split it from there, working with your own plumber to do that work.
And then, kind of answered this already, but are you just doing the water main, or are you replacing sewer at the town as well?
Nope, no sewer, just water main. Any other questions? Okay, hand it back to Brian.
So, and just to reiterate, so for that water service work on 11th Street, if you do have a galvanized service, that's no cost to you, right? So we're all in agreement there. All right, so let's continue on here. Storm sewer and sump pump connections. For those of you that have these or are looking to have these, we want you to basically tie into one of the new catch basins that we install out along the roadway. Really, it's intended only for sump pump, clear water sump pumps, or any kind of roof drains, things like that. So, a couple of things to keep in mind. If you do have existing sump pumps that are going to the sanitary sewer, we'd really like you to switch that and connect it to the storm sewer. Floor drains should be connected to the sanitary sewer, not to the storm sewer. Any existing sump pumps, please let us know. Confirm if you have one and it's connected already to the city stormwater system, and we'll intend to reconnect that to the new system as it gets installed. Any of those of you who may be looking for a new sump pump connection, again, get with us, let us know so that we can coordinate that. But that is something that would be on the property owner to do if there's not an existing connection there now. We do intend to install PVC sleeves, typically 4-inch sleeves underneath driveways, so that if there is a sump pump connection, we typically don't allow folks to blind tap those into the side of a pipe. We typically want those all connected into the nearest catch basin along the curb line. And so that's where you can thread those. If you don't have a catch basin along your frontage immediately in front of your property, then you can use these sleeves to run your sump pump line down to the nearest available connection point. They also dual as a good spot to run any kind of sprinkling or irrigation through those. So those will be installed as part of the project underneath the drive approach. Yeah, question?
Yes, what is the process for discussing this with someone on your staff? Is someone going to contact us? Do we make an appointment with somebody
Yep.
at
Okay.
city? How do we do that?
You bet. So question is, if we are interested or looking to do that, how do we do that? Who do we do that with? And I would say certainly get a hold of us at the transportation department. We can walk you through the steps there. You're welcome to stick around tonight too, and we can talk some specifics there too. Really what it boils down to though, if you are going to have some contract work, and you already know the contractor, once you do identify the contractor, put him in touch with us as well, because there's a few permits and things like that that we want to make sure that get accommodated. All right. Expectations during construction. And we did have a little bit of trouble with this last year. Hopefully it'll be better this year. Trash pickup. Again, it's driver and route specific, it seems like, from year to year. But your trash will get picked up as normal, put it out to the edge of the driveway as normal. Depending on where construction is, the contractor may have to pick up your can, take it to the end of the project site where the garbage service can tip it and then bring it back, right? That's on the contractor to do that. But we encourage you to tape your address to your can so that you get your own can back when that all happens. Mail service will continue as normal. I believe this is a walking route, right? So guys are going to be continuing as usual. Sprinklers, if you have any sprinklers that are out in the road right away, let us know. And then certainly flag them as construction goes by. We'll do our best to minimize the disruption to the sprinklers. We do have allotments in the project to repair those. And I think I got another slide on that, talk a little bit more about that. Street trees, we did had an arborist come and do a survey. So there are some tree removals. I think there are a couple in particular. I know we've talked to a few folks on 11th Street already about that. But if you have questions, we've got plans out here. We can talk specific about what trees are staying or going. Again, the curb lines are staying about the same, but the arborist did flag several of the trees are just old and need to come down from a safety standpoint. So coordinate that. If you have, contact us or inquire with us if you have questions about that. The other thing too is typically at the end of the project during restoration, even after restoration, we'll come through and put new street trees in. So if you're interested in new street trees, again, let us know. But just know that that will occur at the very end of the project. Our prime contractor will be demobilized more than likely, and we'll try and minimize the disruption. When we do plant those trees, we typically use a Vector truck. It's pretty clean and quick. So I would anticipate that on this project as well, but that's going to be late season. Utility service interruptions. Again, Brian stepped through a lot of that, Brian Ritchie, but you'll get advance notice on that. There's typically a couple of different times when that happens, right? When the water main gets cut over and then when the services get cut over. So you'll get advance notice in the form of a door hanger typically.
Yeah, we'll try to catch you over the door hanger.
Yeah. And again, a lot of these, I don't know how many service replacements we have, but for those of you that have service replacements, you're going to be coordinating with us pretty closely anyway, so yeah. All right. Yeah, sprinkling system. So we do have allotment. We do ask you to flag that stuff ahead of time if you do have it. We're going to have a subcontractor on site to do repairs, but if you have a irrigation contractor of your own that's familiar with your system, and you want them to do it, that's fine. We would ask, though, if you want reimbursement for that, and we typically like paying the irrigation person, not the property owner. Let us know, we want to get an estimate from your irrigation subcontractor, contractor, before they do the work, right? So we can just check that. Okay, project schedule. So, again, we're looking at 2 blocks of 11th Street and about 14 blocks of Raalte. 11th Street will be first out of the gate. We're actually going to start before tulip time, and it'll be basically the last week in March is what they're talking about. This is weather dependent, weather permitting, but that would be the earliest possible time that we would get going. Again, we would start on 11th Street between Raalte and Maple, and then when school gets out in June, we would be finishing up 11th Street and transitioning over to Raalte and trying to get as much as we can done around those schools as we can. Then Raalte picks up in June. We anticipate substantial completion, i.e. pavement down, September, end of September, and then seeding, pavement markings, all that good stuff by mid-October. In all likelihood, we're going to be phasing Raalte itself, so we're not just going to open up the whole thing at once. So yeah, that'll be in phases. Again, we're going to try and there's quite a few different schools along the route, so we're going to try and do what we can to minimize those disruptions for their fall startup. All right, so next steps then, Milbacher and Sons, the contractor that was there last year, same contractor this year. You're going to get a postcard in the mail. I don't know if many of you got one. Anyway, the folks on phase 1, I'm sure got one, but we're going to send postcards to everybody ahead of time. These postcards are going to have 24-hour emergency numbers on them, so if for some reason you lose water pressure in the middle of the night, you know, your gas shuts off, you name it, there'll be numbers to contact, and we want to hear about those. We want to respond to those as soon as possible. So good idea to just put that postcard right on the refrigerator so you have it if you need it. Mark sprinklers and garbage cans. Please do that ahead of time. And 11th Street, again, that'll get started on the 25th, weather permitting. So you'll see the way this is set up currently, again, weather permitting. Signs, detour route, stuff like that would get going Monday. Tuesday, they'd bring the mill out, again, just 11th Street, mill up those 2 blocks of 11th Street. And then Wednesday, they'll start with the water main work. And then the rest of the underground will follow after that. So that's coming out of the gate, how that'll look. I guess why don't I open it up to questions, and we'll go from there. So, yes.
So the intersection of 11th and Washington, will that intersection be open to traffic, or will that be completely closed?
Yeah, so there is going to be a time that the work's going to go, sorry, repeat the question. So 11th and Washington, the question was, is that intersection going to be open?
Have 11th Street done by June.
Yeah, so again, pavement down by when school gets out, so we can transition.
And then
Yeah.
also, there's a few people on 11th Street, like between Maple and Washington, that have like landscaping and gardening in the right-of-way space. What do we have to do?
Yeah, okay, so the question was about any landscaping improvements within the right-of-way space. I will say this, and we worked with some folks on 10th Street on this too. So I would encourage you to relocate as much as you can. We'll get those out there.
And then the other question, is there anything we can do to help you guys so this goes more smoothly, whether it's parking in another location, anything like that?
Yeah, let's talk about parking. So the question, again, anything that the homeowners can do to help speed things up and make things go smooth. And I would say the first and foremost, the big thing is on that postcard that you get, there's going to be a construction inspector and his phone number on that postcard. That construction inspector, do we know who that is, Aaron? Is that going to be Nate? Chad. Okay, Chad. He was there last year. He is our eyes and ears and everyone's eyes and ears for what's going on and how things are going and what's going to happen next. So I would encourage folks to, if you see them or if you call them, just establish that contact with them. And that's part of his job, to work with folks and make sure that everyone knows what's going on. So I would encourage you to use that tool if there's questions, or certainly you're welcome to talk with like a foreman from the contractor, but more communication is great, it's better. So don't feel bashful or, like you're creating a nuisance by asking those questions. So I would say try and stay ahead of it and stay in front of it. Hey, is my driveway going to be open tomorrow? Well, we're going to pour concrete Wednesday, so yeah, you'll be open tomorrow. Those kinds of things. If you can do that and establish that, that would be great. I know the contractor, we've got a pretty good contractor on this project, thankfully. They're going to probably try and reach out to all of you as well, but that timing doesn't always work. So again, I would encourage you all to reach out and do that. And there was another part to that I'm missing. That was it. Okay. With regard to the driveways and driveway approach and parking, that was the thing. So there's going to be time, for all intents and purposes, once that surface, that pavement's milled up, you'll still be able to drive over that gravel surface to get to your driveway approach. There will be times when they're cutting the water main in where maybe they're right in front of your driveway approach. There may be a delay there before they can get you in or out. So again, just coordinate. You'll see the guys coming down the street, heading your way, and you can talk to them about, hey, when do you think you'll get to our spot? The other piece to that is that when that underground's all done and we start putting the concrete back, the concrete curb and gutter, the concrete approach, the sidewalk, there's going to be times where that concrete is poured and it needs, sure we take care of that.
Because that doesn't start till after.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So again, we communicate with HPD, and sometimes that gets through to everybody, including the guys writing the tickets. Sometimes it doesn't. So again, encourage you to, if you do get a ticket, let us know, because that's not the intent to do that. Yes.
Are they doing, besides doing the curb, are they doing approaches too?
Yeah, so the question is, and you're talking driveway approach? Yeah, concrete sidewalk. So that's all part of it. Again, the vertical on the road is going to change a little bit, so you got to get that all to tie in together. So, yes, go ahead.
I'm curious.
We're going to do sidewalks, and what are the corners going to look like? And so I guess first and foremost, we have to be ADA compliant, right? So you'll see the slopes on those sidewalk ramps, things like that, should be softened, right? So there's minimum requirements that we have to meet with that. There's those, they call them truncated domes, but the different colored plastic inserts, right? Those will go in. Whether or not we lay down, right? Or if we just do the approaches, it really depends on the geometry of. Yeah, so if you want to stick around, we can look at a specific intersection if you want and show you what it'll look like when it's done. So good question. Yep.
So 11th Street isn't going to change, like get wider?
No, if anything, I think it's getting a hair narrower, maybe a hair wider, but for all intents and purposes.
You shouldn't have to take out trees for that.
Yeah.
Right?
The tree, and Ryan, you did this, right? There's a couple of homeowners that we've talked to already because there was some impacts there, but yeah, I think that's the extent of it. There may be, if a tree is distressed, right, we're not going to leave that in for safety reasons. So that's the other piece. Yes.
A healthy 25-year-old linden tree was cut down in front of my house on Washington. The stump was not removed or ground out. There was a light post installed but not hooked up about 5 feet from the stump of that tree. What's going to happen there? Will there be a new tree, and will that light pole ever be connected to anything?
Yes. So this is the first I've heard of that, but that needs to get clarified. So was it left that? And the question was, there's a tree that was removed on Washington near 11th Street.
Near 10th.
Near 10th. Sorry.
Yes, just north of 10th.
Yep. And there was a light post put there, but it apparently is in operation. Okay, so thank you for letting us know. The intent there is to get that light working. So if it wasn't working towards the end of the project last year, Oh, so it's just recently installed? Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for letting us know, and we'll look into it. Recent install? Okay, yep. So, again, we'll let the BPW Electric know about that. Yep. The tree, yeah, so, do you, I guess, are you interested in a new street tree where that linden was?
Yeah.
Okay, so, can you make a note of that? So that'll, again, we can communicate more on that, but folks that want street trees, let us know, right? And that'll go on our plans for the, yep, got it. Oh. Yeah, email on the postcard. I think it's transportation@cityofholland.com. Is that right?
Do I have a postcard now?
You'll get one. Yep, yep.
We put a new tree in out front, it's not very big yet, not worried about it, so that,
Yep, so the question is, there's a new tree, smaller tree that was installed recently.
it's 2 years.
Are we gonna impact that? I believe that I'm not sure what year that our arborist, because this is a multi-year project, so I'm not sure if we have that tree captured, on our arborist report or not. But that's something you may want to just stick around and take a look at. Is it close to the curb?
Well, I centered it between the streets.
Yeah, then it'll be fine. Should be fine. Yep.
For those of us on 11th Street that have the joint sewer line, and if we're interested in getting that
Yes.
separated.
Yep. Okay.
What is the timeframe that we need
Yeah.
to know for that?
Yep. So the question is about sanitary sewer laterals and joint sanitary sewer laterals on 11th Street, and what's the procedure and process for that? So, as part of the project, there'll be, where there are joint sanitary sewer laterals, there will be another stub, sanitary sewer lateral stub provided, right? But we will not hook that up. It'll be up to the property owner to engage a contractor, our contractor, their own contractor, get a right-of-way permit from us, any kind of plumbing permits that are necessary, and then one of those services can separate off of the joint, right? But we're going to keep that old service in effect, right, in use. So.
We got a sheet, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought that was, I can inquire about that again, and then I can kind of resurrect everyone, with everyone that has, how many we're talking, do you know how many we're talking about there? I don't. I think there were 10. 10? Okay, so yeah, but by all means, if you know that you have a joint service and you're interested, reach out to us, and as that project gets going, line up the contractor, that would be good.
I'm just curious about that. If that is a drill type thing that happens, or is it a major pull up
Yes.
of the earth?
Yes.
and you know,
Yep, this is really in your wheelhouse. Do you want to, and it depends, right? But I'll let Brian Ritchie answer that question. You got to turn that on.
More than likely, that's gonna be open cut, excavated, so they'd have to be, just because it's typically either 4-inch or 6-inch plastic pipe that they're putting in the ground. It's not something they can typically bore, and it has to be at a certain grade, so it's, that's more critical to get it in at the right depth.
okay.
Yeah, but they'll, it's the good thing with doing it with this project, if you have plans to do it at some point in the near future, now is the best time, just because you're not paying for the restoration on the public side to get it to that.
You know, we've lived in the house with this connection. We've had the house since '87. Never a problem, never. Like, okay.
Yep, yeah.
Okay, start all up and, yeah.
If you have a joint when you have to do something with it?
You don't have to. It is encouraged that you do, because number one, you're connected with somebody else. You run the risk of somebody else backing you up. And then just the simple fact of us coming through there with brand new
Brand new
road,
everything.
the opportunity to jump in and do it would be then.
Yep.
So,
And it
again-
would be a shame, right, to tear up something a year or two from now, right? The whole place is gonna get blown up. Let's go ahead and do that when.
Of my driveways.
It's your
the
property, so we
approach,
can't tell
right,
you
the
what to do.
approaches, right.
Yep,
Ours is right down the middle of the driveway.
yeah, a lot of them are, especially in the smaller part of town.
And you may be able to relocate that, right? I don't know if you have a finished basement or not,
Are
but,
you in?
oh, yeah. But you may be able to, put the new lateral.
3 feet from the house to the driveway, that much space.
Okay.
That's it.
Is that enough space to dig it?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
It depends on how deep, right? How deep you gotta go and everything.
They would probably reroute it if they put a new one in.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I remember that sheet, but I don't.
yeah.
If you're interested though, reach out to a local plumber and they would, I'm sure, be happy to come take a look and give you a price.
Yeah, and McIntyre Plumbing's gonna be on the job, right, doing the water service work, so maybe a good, I encourage everyone to get more than one quote,
Yes.
right? But probably pretty easy to get at least one there from the folks on the job. All right, any other questions? Any other questions from online, Ryan?
We had one. Are all driveways being torn up in this work zone on Van Raalte?
And yeah, the answer to that is yes. More than likely, there'll be new driveway approaches on Van Raalte and on 11th Street. There are a couple of areas on Van Raalte in particular where if you're right up next to an intersection that's been done already, then there is a possibility that we would leave something in place if it's in good shape. So it'll somewhat be dependent on that, but that's it.
Question?
So if you're putting new approaches on 11th, can we make those a little bit wider, a little bit more?
Yeah, so we have like maximum standards. Typically, we'll put 3-foot flares on them as well. But I would encourage you again, if there's concerns or comments, the inspector, what's his name again? Aaron?
Chad guy.
I would encourage you, that's the kind of thing where it's like, hey, and he knows the limits, right? We can only go so far with that, right? Otherwise, it's just driveway to driveway. So, but I would encourage you to engage him, and he'll be able to work with you on laying that out.
Does Chad have a last name?
Guy.
Chad
Last name.
Guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
Chad is the guy.
I'm sorry?
He will be on that, yeah.
Yes,
And his
yeah, the
contact
question
info.
is, yeah, will our inspector be on that? And yes, he will. Yeah, he's very important. He is, so our construction inspector is there anytime the contractor is there. So he again is the eyes and ears. The other thing too, in terms of construction expectations, typically we're a Monday to Friday thing. There probably will be some Saturday work. It's really just contractor dependent. They typically do not work on Sunday. So, all right. Well, we'll stick around for a few more minutes. Thanks everybody for coming out, and appreciate your time tonight.